Thursday, the 13th of February, 2025, and the full moon, it's already left earlier this morning, a few hours ago, but we had a full moon in Leo, and it just got me thinking more about the luminescence and the rising and the apparent rising and setting of the moon as well. I've looked significantly into the sun. I've done plenty of videos on that. And the moon, I've talked about how it does have its own predictable path that it also travels. And again, it's a little off, just like the sun, where sometimes we have leap years again in order to account for that. And so, but the moon, for example, if it's in Gemini in Capricorn, so like around the December period, it will always be the full moon in. So not a full moon in Gemini, but the moon will always enter into. Well, it'll enter into all the signs, but anyways, there's significance to what I'm trying to explain. Maybe I need a couple more copies. But so if it's in Gemini, when the sun enters into Capricorn, it's around the December period, and then we get a full moon period the following month. It would be in Aquarius, and then the following month it would be in Pisces, and then it would be in Aries, and then Taurus, and then Gemini, etc. And the same thing for the new moon period, right? It's very precise and accurate, but again, a little off, just like the sun's travel path. And so anyways, I've talked about that, how generally speaking, you can predict that. But then I was looking into the rising and the setting of the moon when it is in each zodiacal sign, or Mazalot or Mazaroth, or whatever you want to call it. And so I went through the list, and I went through pretty much every single month. Not all the months, but like so many of the months, and I'm still going to go through this. And again, this is constant research because that had already taken me hours. But what I did was I was calculating the amount, the duration that the moon rises and sets where I am when it's in each sign. And so, for example, when I went down the list, I was looking at I was calculating how many. The rising and setting period of Taurus, it was approximately 16 hours. Scorpio, it was approximately 8.5 hours. Again, there's a little bit of a variation between, for example, with Taurus, anywhere between like 15.5 to 16.5 hours. Scorpio between 8 and 9, but again, around the 8.5. Very consistent and almost like, and again, very precise, but again, not 100%. You've got Sagittarius approximately 8 hours, Capricorn approximately 8 hours, sometimes 8.5, but like not too far off. Aquarius 9, Pisces around 12. Aries 14, and then again Gemini 17, Cancer 17, Leo 15, Virgo approximately 15 and a half, Libra 12, and then again I was going down the list, and like for every single month, and it was just very interesting to me how I didn't clue into that before, and so I thought that you guys would enjoy that. And so the things are still kicking off, and of course Israel did not honor the ceasefire that was put in place with Palestine, and they haven't multiple times in the past. So for anyone that thought that was going to be something that was going to stick, I mean, that you really don't know the criminality that Netanyahu has been involved in for literally decades. And that's why I was saying even a few years ago, like I did think that possibly like the World War III to be initiated would be something that would involve Jerusalem. And again, it was on my whiteboards too. And so I wouldn't put it beyond Netanyahu to target, for example, the holy site, the temple area, and then blame it on someone else, and then again make it possible a World War III, which is not good for anyone. And yeah, I can go on a tangent about that, but I did want to get into some of the my stories that I post because it is relevant on Instagram. I'm very censored. And so you'd have to type out my full name, right to the last letter in order to even view me, and then you get a warning. So anyway, I wanted to share this post because, you know, this is a very emotional time for a lot of people. And Mark Fogel, he was in Russian captivity for years over a pot charge. And when Grimes, whatever her name is, oh my God, I forget. Anyway, like she, it didn't take long for a negotiation for a trade or to have her released. And again, there's questions about that as well. But anyway, and so this guy was not. And again, why? A veteran and someone that was more likely on the right end of the political spectrum. Again, not a crime at all. Again, there's left and right every single fucking country where there's actually legitimate governance to varying degrees. And Yeah, so and she was on the left, and so, like, when people in that regime, the Biden regime and in the Trudeau regime, when I'm telling you they have been targeting and using like, the full arm of the law and other government organizations and private security companies, you and experts, you name it, they were literally going after people that were and targeting people that were again on the other side of the political spectrum just because we're not voting for them and then we didn't vote for them like we're the ones getting punished, and this is happening in the US as well, which is exactly what we saw with January 6th when a third of the FBI was tasked to investigate and basically destroy the lives of peaceful protesters that attended January 6th and some that didn't even attend January 6th. And again, this was not a riot. This was a staged and planned event where even thousands of crisis actors were used, multiple government plants and embeds that were also there to elicit emotional response in people and incite the crowds, and were even breaking public property and ushering people inside the Capitol. And then again with the smoke bombs and the tear gas shooting into the crowds and anyway, a lot of stuff. I'm going on a tangent, but his mother is like 95 years old, and she almost didn't like, and luckily she survived this. But this woman, like her, like I just can't even imagine the amount of pain and suffering and grief that she has gone through because of him being. And it was going to be a 15-year sentence too. And again, there were people that were on the left side of the political spectrum or pushing the woke DEI agenda that again were released almost immediately. And then someone like him, like he was just like there was not even any updates. He wasn't even considered a priority. Like it's just, and the same thing happened in Canada with the Michaels, political prisoners in China, and we have proof and facts that Justin Trudeau and members of his cabinet and friends and family network have been working with Chinese. I would call them traitors and well, not traitors, but I would call them people that are either terrorists or committing terrorist activities and not aligned with our ethics and values and morals, or do they even care about what happens to our country? Free. Ugh, amazing. Mm, well, you've been in a Russian prison for years, so yeah, just yeah, and his like the charges, like he brought pot into Russia. Yes, it's against the law, and he should have known better. But he was going to be there for an extended period of time, and again, it's not something that was unusual, right? He had gone back and forth like at least a few times, and he was using it because like it was to treat like he was using it essentially as a medicine. And I do have a prescription for pot, and someone that is also a veteran, and I have found that it is has been significantly better for me than all the pills that were being thrown at me and prescribed, not only in service but out of service. And so I can understand that, like wanting to have like a certain amount to like for the duration of your stay, because he was going to be there for a very long period of time. So I think he had got caught with like I want to say like 16 grams or something like that. You can correct me if I'm wrong, or like whatever it was. And but the charge they were alleging, they were alleging that he had the intent to sell. And again, like as someone that also has like a prescription, when it gets sent to me, it's like it's in like a large quantity, and then it's spread out throughout the month, right? And so I feel really bad for this guy, where like he was just trying to manage stress and in different countries, different policies. So again, it's like ignorance is not an excuse, but again, he should have been out and released years ago. And the same thing with the Michaels. They were in jail for over 4 years. I forget the actual like the amount of time, but it was and again, it was because they didn't push the woke DEI agenda, nor would it help the political people with their campaigns, right? And so they didn't see it as an opportunity to market themselves. Yeah, this should stay viral. Mhm. You're the one doing it. Oh shit! I knew it.
Tulum County collected over 20 rainwater samples and filed public records requests.
I'm so sorry. This Rumble Studio thing really confuses me a little bit. So anyway, I'm just gonna quickly go through just to show you. This was Benny Johnson's post. He gets a lot of things right, but some things he gets really wrong.
And Secretary,
I'm not perfect either. I just, I'm a little bit more consistent. Anyway, yeah, he offered the Lincoln bedroom to Mark Vogel, and so I do believe that he had even slept in it. And again, it's just like the pain and his grief of his family is just, oh my god.
A video of a Californian woman confronting a pilot after he landed at 1:30 a.m. has just gone viral.
We're tired of you dumping heavy metals all over our county.
well, I'm not the one to talk to about that.
No, but you are. But you're the one that's doing it. So
For the last several years, she's tracked these flights over Tulum County, collected over 20 rainwater samples, and filed public records requests revealing hazardously elevated levels of aluminum, barium, strontium, titanium, and magnesium, the very materials they use in their trails, as confirmed by air sample analysis collected up in the sky within the trails themselves.
At great effort and expense, we acquired a National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration flying lab, put top scientists in it, took samples at altitude behind heavy aircraft. We sampled what they were emitting. The sample was processed at one of the top testing institutions in the world. We found exactly what we knew we would find.
Fast forward to this week when she claims to have had enough. Using Flight Radar 24, she tracked a Beech C-90 King Air conducting repeated seeding flights over Sonora. She drove to the Modesto Jet Center to confront the pilots directly.
904 DK. That's who that is. He can go himself. At some point, I will get down to the airport. So this is the Modesto Jet Center, okay? Oh my God, that's them. Look at them in the building. They let me in. You're Tim, right?
I'm one of the other captains.
Oh, great. We've been trying to reach you for a long time, and we are tired of you dumping heavy metals all over our county.
well, I'm not the one to talk to about that.
No, but you are. But you're the one that's doing it. So I've been taking rain samples. I have over 20 samples. And every time you fly, we get high amounts of aluminum, barium, strontium, titanium, magnesium.
You can talk to
I've
them
tried.
about that.
I've called them, and they're not calling me back. So we're now going to bring something legal against your company. We are real people underneath what you're doing. You spray right over our houses now. You did 2 flights, 2 3-hour flights.
It's public knowledge.
It's not really though. That's the problem. We've been doing this for 30 years. They are now selling aluminum, genetically modified seeds to grow food because our soil is so contaminated. There's an early onset dementia. There's Alzheimer's. Things are starting to happen to people's health.
That's not my department.
I know the goal.
Did you drive here today?
Yes, we did.
You're contributing to the pollution in the environment as
No,
well.
what is your name again?
It's none of your business.
It is my business because you're over my head dumping over our families
We're
and our
not doing
houses.
anything illegal, so
It's not illegal yet. You are contributing to dumping heavy metals on our soils and in our air. We're breathing it, we're drinking it, we're eating it. It matters to me.
I understand that. I'm not saying it doesn't matter. I'm just saying
It does matter.
I'm not the one for you to bring these concerns to.
We do the best we can to bring awareness to it.
Yeah, it's just proper awareness, and it's not serious stuff.
A video of a Californian woman confronting a pilot. A video of a
And that rabbit hole ran deep. So I was looking into it. I was looking at Weather Modification Incorporated, which is the company that is affiliated with that pilot in that area, and the funding also in Canada. I make the connection there as well with cloud seeding operations and weather modification that we've been doing here. I named the company, a few of the companies, and it was KGB. I'm just looking here because again, this has been a while since I had this up, and we'll see if it even. So many freaking emails. But Oracle, Microsoft, Deliwat, and other organizations that were very interesting that were clients of these cloud seeding weather modification companies, despite the fact that they're private, and they also receive funding from government And so I think this is stuff that we really need to pay attention to. KPMG. Okay, and I talked about the fact that KPMG, like right in their priorities, inclusion, diversity, and equity. Still, they haven't updated it. And I'm just going to share this with you because I don't know if I did before. Yesterday, I don't remember if I did. KPMG, inclusion, diversity, and equity. And again, they're affiliated with cloud seeding, weather modification operations that are happening in Canada. And like even here, ESG, like right in. And so you look at their partners. I always like to look at who's collaborating with them. Was it down here? I'll get it. I'll get it up. Yeah, and so again, they're the cover. They're the ones that assist in getting them not to be convicted of crimes. And we need to have RICO laws in Canada. I've said that for years, but that is something that we really need to consider doing, because again, a lot of this is happening and it's at the expense of us. Anyway, I'll get into it. I'm just going to stop sharing and go through my videos again. But KPMG, weather modification, cloud seeding operations. Look at my video from yesterday, I believe it was. Yeah, so this is the company that the guy works for. And well, it's not really letting me. Anyway, enough of that. When I share one of my longer videos, I'll get into showing you KPMG and their clients. Okay.
Is welling up, going deep inside like my heart. I'm your mother, I'm your daddy, I'm that little.
Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders, how bad is it? And he's looking at the social media. They know we're owned by pharma. And they're still doubling down. Even Elizabeth Warren, I can't believe with everything that's actually coming up. It's the thing is that they've been so protected now for years with how much money has been invested in media, even with the with literally state-funded media, that it like they pushed such a, I would say, psyops censorship campaign. It was incredible. And so they're still expecting that a lot of people are not going to get the actual facts or news that is being released. But unfortunately for them now, with now us having access to more uncensored browsers and understanding there's more people that are connecting to VPNs and looking outside of their country in order to get access to news that they know is being censored in North America. It's it's up. Like you can't get away with the things that you got away with even 10 years ago, and especially not even a few decades ago where internet wasn't even as prevalent, and so millions of dollars from pharma companies like these are the biggest drug dealers.
Lena, so this new
Not them
report comes from
specifically, I'm saying
ANSYS, the
like
French Agency for Food, Environmental, and
Yeah, this is blue light stuff that I was talking about, how different light affects us differently. So New York City before and after, LEDs are an assault on our health. I do agree with that. And just getting to the video here because he explains it well.
No.
It's funny. Anyway, there was a video with it, I thought.
Lena, so this new report comes from
Yeah, how come it's not playing the friggin' video?
No.
That's so weird. I can play it. Anyway,
Lena, so this new report comes from ANSYS, the French Agency for Food, Environmental, and Occupational Health and Safety. And what they found, that new scientific evidence confirming the phototoxic effects of short-term exposures to high-intensity
blue light, which is replacing so many lights, even in schools. Again, for streets, and again, it's not good for you, and it also accelerates aging. So this is from For Canada 2025 exclusive, how the RCMP, CBSA, so that's Royal Canadian Mounted Police, Canadian Border Service Agency, and Trudeau government lost U.S. trust in the fentanyl fight. Surveillance operations have raised alarms after placing Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and a former cabinet minister in proximity to Asian organized crime suspects. Yeah, you can't even make this up. And it's not even just China, by the way, India, Pakistan. And again, this is just like there are people that are part of organized crime that aren't like just like reiterated. I was not scrolling through. Veteran law enforcement officials, both active and retired, from the United States and Canada, have come forward with explosive allegations suggesting that Canada's federal government may have systematically obstructed investigations into the highest levels of Asian organized crime. According to these sources, American agencies, including the U.S. Department of Homeland Security, excuse me, have grown so alarmed by suspected corruption and legal loopholes in Canada that they have effectively sidelined Canadian law enforcement from sensitive investigations and intelligence sharing. So again, Justin Trudeau, who's like possibly connected to this, is preventing people from doing their jobs appropriately. They're making us a risk or being seen as a risk to Americans. And again, like even with that cooperation, collaboration piece, it's not happening. And these people, again, law enforcement officials, military officials, veteran, and still serving have been trying to expose this for literally years, right? These are people that are like that were high up in their departments, might still be, and again, the intelligence briefs, the back briefs that they are providing to government to make assessments, intelligence assessments, it's not being observed or analyzed and assessed the way it should be and by the right people. Yeah. Several veterans of Canadian law enforcement, again, heroes, argue that that while U.S. President Donald Trump's critiques of Canada's handling of fentanyl trafficking and border security are politically charged and often harsh, which is true, they underscore an uncomfortable reality. Canada is increasingly perceived as compromised. Yeah, so I think that it's like less than 1% of the fentanyl that's entering the U.S. is coming from from the Canadian border. But again, it doesn't matter, right? And it is still killing Americans and Canadians, and it should be something that's further investigated. Canada is increasingly perceived as compromised, either incapable or unwilling to confront entrenched transnational criminal networks. American and Canadian sources alike describe a nation whose law enforcement agencies are in disarray, inhibited by suspected infiltration at the highest levels, obstructing investigations into billion-dollar drug networks and money laundering operations. Could not agree more. And people are pushing for Canada to have RICO laws, just like were enacted or implemented in the U.S. And I believe it was in the 1970s, the early 1970s, like 71 or something like that. Anyway, these American and Canadian experts pointed to the notorious case of Cameron Ortis, Canadian's former top police intelligence official, who was convicted of leaking Five Eyes signals intelligence to some of the world's most dangerous Iranian state-sponsored criminals. His case, still cloaked in national security secrecy, is believed to have also involved Chinese espionage investigations. But concerns about corruption within Canada's law enforcement and intelligence agencies extend far beyond Ortis and himself, according to enforcement experts who spoke on the condition of anonymity due to the sensitivity of the matter. Well, you're not like me then. I went right out with it and doxed myself a few years ago because, again, like no one within government was listening at the higher levels because they're the ones that were fucking like bought off, right? Or duped into like pushing like things that were actually destroying our country from the inside out, and overextending us, anyways, and involving us in wars we have no business being in that are staged and planned by, again, these same fucking people that are trying to shut this down and bury it. So you have to identify yourself. You have to name yourself so there's more people that have credibility behind their behind what they're saying, so that people will take it more seriously, right? Like instead of like YouTube and memes and stuff like that, like people do need to get more actively like involved peacefully in and getting this information out. Like just like what's happening in the US, we're not going to get that level of doge here in Canada, right? And so we do need to have people that are better in law enforcement, military, CSIS, CBSA, CSEC, Global Affairs Canada, you name it, and serving to do what you're supposed to be doing. I mean, no offense in saying that, and start investigating the people that are the actual major criminals here. I'm all over the place, but the expert said that Growing distrust is a key reason why the United States has scaled back its collaboration with Canadian law enforcement over the past decade. Yeah, I don't even think we were invited to some like some major NATO training operations and missions, and I think it was because Melanie Jolie or someone else that was like not qualified at all, maybe Anita and I forget now, but the ones in like that would have been representing Canada for I don't even know how that's even possible, and zero background or experience in national defense yet. Look, we've got way too many lawyers that are bureaucratic, lobbyist, corporatists, not on the right side of humanity. We have a lot of good lawyers and judges too. I'm not taking that away. But especially in like major cities, I'm finding it that's a trend, and what's being pushed, and the people that are getting targeted, and who's getting harsher sentences, all that stuff, and then who's not. Yeah. And I don't want to paint every CBSA officer with a brush as being useless. I agree, they're definitely not. I know people that work in the CBSA, they're incredible people, and they're of service to Canadians, and they are required, but they're getting more, they've been limited and restricted in what they can do. Some of them are excellent people, they added, but it's just run so poorly. The level of incompetence within Canadian law enforcement is staggering. I don't think people understand. If they did, they'd probably be too scared to know how bad it actually is. Not wrong. Not wrong. Several oh my, and I'll get into it too with Mark Carney and what he has said and what he has threatened, because it is a threat. Several veteran law enforcement officials say concerns extend beyond Canada's ability to confront transnational crime to the country's political leadership itself. According to 2 RCMP experts, quiet surveillance operations have raised alarms after placing Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and a former cabinet minister in proximity to Asian organized crime suspects. There were real concerns about Asian organized crime figures being at Liberal fundraisers with access to Prime Minister Trudeau. This is deeply concerning. It was openly discussed in some units. Again, when you are talking about billions of dollars in criminal profits, this equals real power and influence. I'm not accusing the Prime Minister or any politician of being corrupt, but we would be naive to think that ultra-rich criminals don't use their resources in an attempt to sway or influence prominent people. Agreed. Highlighting the elite capabilities of U.S. agencies they work closely with, the expert added, we dealt with Homeland Security on different investigations where they were using very sensitive intel techniques, as good as anything that exists for law enforcement. They could easily have captured criminals with information related to the Canadian government or other officials that might not come to light through Canadian investigations. The police expert, explaining the decision to come forward at a pivotal moment in U.S.-Canada relations, argued that Canadians remain largely unaware of the nation's vulnerabilities. So true. People have to be able to see and understand how bad it is. We are not even considered a serious partner vis-a-vis Trump at this point. Fentanyl coming from Canada to the U.S. isn't something Trump is just throwing out there. He's getting this information from top American law enforcement officials who know exactly how far Canada has fallen. And as a police officer who risks my life countless times alongside other brave men and women, I find it embarrassing that we let our country get to this state. Yeah. Yeah, so when I'm talking about this information, like I'm not anti-government at all. I am anti-people within government and that have government influence or influencing people in positions that matter the most, that are screwing over the rest of us, literally. But it's happening in the U.S. as well. So again, there's a bit of hypocrisy in that. But anyway, and even with ICE, they're risking their lives every single day. And again, it's like so much of it again was so unavoidable, and it was because people like Biden and Harris and those people within that network profited off of it. According to multiple enforcement veterans, American agencies began withholding intelligence more than 10 years ago after repeated incidents in which top secret files were jeopardized or blocked by Canadian legal demands. The level of stuff that the Americans were willing to work with us on was incredible, but we were so hamstrung by Canadian disclosure laws and RCMP policies written to protect the RCMP from potential embarrassments rather than to protect Canadians from actual dangers, said federal veteran with direct knowledge of the Five Eyes law enforcement. The veteran described learning of briefings from senior Washington officials where they showed how intelligence was disseminated and it was shared with Five Eyes partners, including Canada. It was embarrassing. At the center of U.S. government alarm, sources believe is the case of Assam Gore, one of the world's most powerful triad drug trafficking networks, which reported links to Chinese Communist Party operatives, according to U.S. government experts such as former Trump State Department official David Asher. 3 Canadian experts said Australia had warned Canada about the threat posed by Sam Gore, also known as the company, long before the RCMP recognized it as a major transnational syndicate. Widely regarded as a highly sophisticated enterprise, Sam Gore links Southeast Asia drug networks, responsible for trafficking tens of billions of dollars in fentanyl and methamphetamine, to global operations involving Latin America, cartels, and large-scale money laundering. Save Our Children, I believe, is the name of the not-for-profit NGO, whatever you want to call it. And I believe it might have been Guatemala, but it just came out that their human trafficking also involved there, that involved this group. And like I've said before, people can have a title that makes it seem like what they're doing is honorable and noble. And for a lot of people that work with these agencies, they are doing things that are honorable and noble and that really do help people that need it. But unfortunately, at the top and with certain people, this is also something that is also aiding and enabling human and drug trafficking operations and arms operations trafficking. And so it's unfortunate, right? Because it's just like with religious organizations, there are some really, really good ones out there that are doing really, really good work. And then there's some that are not. It's not the majority, but unfortunately it's still happening, and it's still significant enough where it should be raising alarm bells. And I think it was 150,000 children they tracked that were trafficked from Guatemala alone through this organization. And it's unfortunate. Canada's largest ever money laundering investigation, Pirate, was directly linked to Sam Gore, a fact not widely disclosed, according to a Canadian source with direct knowledge of this case. Anyway, we can go into this, but relations with America, not great right now. I'm going to get it. I was going to say, like in the U.S. as well, like they have people that are connected to like within the highest levels of government, or veterans that were working in like the highest levels of government. I'm talking about even CIA, FBI, Homeland Security, etc., and multiple people within Senate and Congress, and cabinet or whatever, that are linked to mafia, mob, cartels internationally. So this is from Carrie Lake. And of course, she was going to call this out. Looks like Ruben Gallego, son of Mexican cartel drug trafficker, and his buddy Alex Soros are in serious trouble. And so it actually is true. Ruben Gallego, his father is son of a Mexican cartel drug trafficker. He actually went to prison, I believe, for it as well. And but they're still within the networks. So this is from Tony Saruga. We will be providing the DOJ with GPS on both of these twat waffle, anyway, shit weasels, not my words, meeting for hours on end with cartel leaders, hundreds upon hundreds of times over the past 6 years. Yeah. And Kamala Harris possibly also links to cartels, her family, and socialist Marxists. Yeah. So let me get this straight. Fauci's NIAID and USAID sent over $40 million in U.S. taxpayers' support to a scientist in Wuhan who was working on bat coronavirus emergence research, who also became patient zero for COVID-19. And the completion date for that funding was in 2019. So again, something else I was looking into. I'm like, holy shit. Yeah. So now you know why I said 2 years ago that my pronouns were prosecute Fauci. That's directly from Elon responding to that tweet. So Chief Nerd, 2014, the year Fauci's pardon was backdated to. Just a coincidence, of course. So the Chief Nerd exposed Anthony Fauci's NIAID and USAID spent over $40 million in U.S. taxpayer money to a scientist in Wuhan. That same scientist became patient zero for COVID-19. That research started in 2014, the same year Anthony Fauci's pardon starts. Elon Musk confirms this by why his pronouns were prosecute Fauci. Elon Musk first made this declaration after reviewing the Twitter files. This is all true. So this poster is saying that this is the crime of the century. This is crimes against humanity. This proves Joe Biden and the DNC are all involved, because why else would the perfectly date? I guess they're trying to say they perfectly date Anthony Fauci's pardon to 2014. And again, he's still going to be sued by the states. It's already happening. And again, like, people want him to go to jail. He has ruined so many lives. People also going like in jail because of him. And yeah, so Ben Hu, investigate. A WCW Freedom of Information Act FOIA investigation and 2021 lawsuit paired with other newly leaked U.S. intelligence further points to the Wuhan animal lab as ground zero. If Ben Hu is patient zero, then his WCW investigation reveals the origin of COVID. Newly leaked U.S. intelligence identified Hu as the first person to get sick at the Wuhan lab. In 2021, the WCW project first obtained these receipts. And so anyways, it's just redundant, but again, there's more of your receipts. Gain of function. This is also people like Fauci that funded this for years. This was not something that was new. And as I've shared before as well, the receipts that even one of the heads of Pfizer had admitted that they had made like over 150,000 vials of COVID-19 inoculations the year prior to the pandemic.
It's something that my government.
Yeah. Well,
It's something that my government is going.
So this is Mark Carney.
It's something that
Says he will invoke emergency powers to fight America. Like, oh my! So listen.
my government is going to do is to use.
No, what happened? Sorry.
To use all of the powers of the federal government, including the emergency powers of the federal government.
What is with this liberal government and unconstitutionally and unlawfully not only declaring emergency acts, but then threatening them for the future? Like they're not learning. And unfortunately, the liberals now are apparently tied in the polls with the conservatives. And I predicted that something big might happen within the Liberal Party that would make someone like Mark Carney or Chrystia Freeland be on top. Because again, these are people that are connected to WEF. They're connected to Davos, Bilderberg, especially Carney. And again, he has the connections within like the banking systems, not only the Bank of England, but the Bank of Canada. And the list goes on. But listen to him talk. This is the guy that is possibly going to be the next Liberal Party leader and may actually be the one that is the next prime minister, which sounds to me terrifying.
To accelerate the major projects that we need in order to build this economy.
In order to accelerate the projects that they need. Yeah. And he's talking about tariffs, carbon
Take
tax
on the
tariffs.
Americans. And something that my government is going to do is to use all of the powers of the federal government, including the emergency powers of the federal government, to accelerate the major projects that we need in order to.
Yeah. So he's lost the plot. Lost the plot. Sorry.
What is the worst animal?
Okay, this is what do you want to call it? Trigger alert, trigger warning. I think it's important to get this information out there because like people should be seeing what our money goes towards, and like this really upsets
Testing
me.
experiment you've ever heard of and uncovered?
Actually,
There's some really bad
refresh that. Sorry.
animal testing experiment you've ever heard of and uncovered. There's some really bad ones out there. What is the absolute worst one you've ever heard of and uncovered?
The kitten cannibalism was pretty horrendous. Breeding kittens just to force them to eat cat meat and then killing them even though they were perfectly healthy after they collected their feces out of a litter box. I mean, that's literally what was happening. They were doing that to thousands and thousands of kittens. The DOJ, until recently, was stabbing, shooting, and blowing up live animals for training exercises. We were able to cut that and defund.
Stabbing, shooting, and blowing up live animals for training. I just process that for a second.
That the experiments that the NIH funded and Fauci funded in Tunisia, where they were putting the dogs and heads in mesh cages and filling them with biting flies. Yeah, there's a lot of nightmarish stuff that we're being forced to fund, and taxpayers don't like it, and they don't even know how bad the situation is. If they did, they would be, marching in the streets.
Yeah. And Dr. Locke, a question for you. What are the prospects of a drug therapy that fails animal testing? Is it likely to receive regulatory approval?
Thank you for your question. I'm not an expert on the drug development process, but the way you've described things, I think if drug would not make it through the tests that are required, it would not be able to be in the market. If I could just add, though, that
Sure.
Congress has really looked closely at this issue about developing drugs and passed a law, the FDA Modernization Act.
What is the worst animal testing experiment?
Yeah, so NIH funded. Yeah, hear him again, just talking about just nonchalant.
Yeah, so I was 16.
Yep. Just wanted to make sure I got through all of them. I post a lot of good content, in my humble opinion.
Yeah, so I was
Done with Instagram. I'm gonna go back to Whitney Webb. Actually, no, I'm gonna get into. I don't really post a lot from Megyn Kelly, but I will today because this was really good. Detained American Mark Fogel finally released from Russia thanks to Trump with Anna Kasparian. This was really
two things that have happened. This is just breaking. 3 more people have been released from Belarus. Just trying to get my arms around the news right here. 1 is a U.S. citizen who wants to remain private. 2 are non-Americans, including a Radio Liberty journalist. So here we have at least 1 U.S. citizen now released from Belarus, most of us didn't even know that there was an American citizen being held in Belarus. And this is on the heels of another U.S. citizen being released by Russia. His name is Mark Fogel, thanks to the work of Donald Trump. He was over there teaching the children of diplomats and had been there for quite some time.
That's what he was doing.
And he got arrested because he had marijuana, which he said he uses for medical purposes. He had 17 grams of marijuana. That actually led me to look up on my phone, how much is 17 grams of marijuana? You know me, I don't know anything about these drugs, but I did look up how much is 17 grams of marijuana, and 14 grams is a half ounce. And it looks like this. I don't know if you can see this on my phone, but it looks like basically a bowl of lettuce that you might put in a salad, maybe enough for 2 people to have a salad. And they say that 14 ounces could basically get you 28 joints. Now, this guy was using it, he says, for medicinal purposes, but the Russians, as they have been known to do, decided to say that he was going to distribute it. He was basically there in Russia to become some sort of a drug dealer with what could turn into 28 joints. I mean, it wasn't going to be a very lengthy career. I think he'd been over there for some 15 years.
Oh,
so they took this guy, this American citizen, Mark Fogel, they put him behind bars, and the Biden administration completely forgot about this guy. They didn't even designate him with a special sort of status that would demand that we look into what's happening to him and start bargaining for his return. They just kind of pretended that Mark Fogel didn't exist from the point he got arrested. Meantime, after he was arrested in August 2022, they negotiated for first they designated Brittany Griner, that basketball player, as illegal detained. They didn't do it for Fogel. And then they went on to negotiate for Brittany's release, but they didn't do that for this guy Fogel.
Brittany.
A bipartisan group of U.S. senators lobbied the State Department to change his status so that he would be more likely to, qualify for a negotiated release. Biden wouldn't. It's been really strange how this guy's been completely left behind. Then this guy Fogel's mom, Malphine Fogel, age 95, showed up at the Pennsylvania campaign rally where Trump was nearly assassinated. And she told the New York Post that she explained to Trump that her son was in a Russian jail for the same crime Brittany Griner committed. Griner was in jail for 10 months before President Biden got her out. She said, "My son's been there for 3 years, and I haven't heard from President Biden or from anyone in Washington. Mr. Trump told me, if I get in, I will get him out," and gave me a thumbs up. He was very cordial and sincere. And finally, in August of 2024, National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan described Fogel as wrongfully detained. That was the first they'd ever done that, putting him back on the block for negotiations. It's just ridiculous. And still, remember that prisoner swap in August of 2024 when Joe Biden and Kamala Harris showed up? And it was like, who's trying to take credit for this? What's happening? He was not negotiated for, and he was not part of that prisoner swap. It's where we got the Wall Street Journal reporter, Evan Gershkovich, back. Nope, left this guy Fogel behind. And guess what? Trump's been in office for 3 weeks, and he got him. He got him back. It's amazing. Here's the video of him greeting Mark Fogel at the White House yesterday. Wow. Well, here he is outside of Air Force One. His mom is thrilled. Malphine Fogel said thank you to Fox via an interview. Here's the proper video. She said thank you to Trump on an interview with Fox yesterday. Take a listen to that in SOT 13.
There's a chance he's watching or we'll see this. What would you like to say to President Trump?
I would like to thank him profusely. He promised me he would get him out, and he kept his promise. And I can't thank him enough, and Secretary Rubio also, and anybody else who's had a hand in this. I'm sure there were quite a few that got the ball rolling, but I particularly want to thank President Trump.
Amazing. And here, look at this extraordinary tape. Here is Mark Fogel in the White House. This guy didn't even know that he was about to get released. 24 hours later, he's with the president in the White House. And here's what he had to say.
I will forever be indebted, President Trump, to Steve over there. What a dynamic man this guy is.
That's true.
And
Steve Wickoff.
I'm a middle-class school teacher who's now in a dream world.
We're going to show you the Lincoln bedroom in a little while.
And I'm so happy to be back here. And I wish I could articulate it better.
You've done beautifully, and he's got a great mother. And when I saw the mother at a rally, she said, if you win, will you get my son out? And I promised. She's 95 years old. And I said, we'll get him out. And we got him out.
Wow. He did. And now another American, still anonymous as of now, out of Belarus. I mean, this is amazing. Trump is on a roll, folks. We'll see if he gets any credit from the left for that. Here he is kissing the ground when he got off the plane. If he gets any credit for this from the left. I will say, credit where it's due. John Fetterman praised him. The guy, Fogel's from Pennsylvania. So did Josh Shapiro. Didn't exactly praise Trump very often. I give him a lot of credit for doing it. I want to talk to Anna Kasparian now. She is host and executive producer of The Young Turks, and she's editor of the Unaligned Substack. Been on the program once before. Anna, welcome back. What do you make of this? It's amazing to see these Americans, all but forgotten, slowly but surely returning home.
Well, I agree with you about forgotten Americans who have either been held hostage by, authoritarian governments abroad. It's terrible. So when I see that photo of Mark Fogel kissing the ground, kissing America, essentially, it's an emotional moment. And this is one of the good things that the Trump administration has managed to do in the few short weeks that he's been in office for his second term. So credit where credit is due. Absolutely.
It does make you wonder why didn't we try harder under Joe Biden? What was the problem?
Exactly.
Because we had Rick Grenell just got 6 Americans back home, Belarus now releasing one, Russia releasing Mark Fogel, American hostages being held by Hamas. Was it just a lack of caring? It was like, this is how happening. Literally, he hasn't even been in office a month.
Well, Megyn, let me just tell you, while Biden was still in office, one that really infuriated me was the story of a young American citizen, Isenor Igi, who was actually protesting with some activists in the West Bank in regard to the high civilian death toll in Gaza. And Israeli snipers shot and killed her. And the Biden administration did not care.
Yep.
They pretended as though
that.
The Israeli officials had launched an investigation into it, and then we never heard about it again. That was an American citizen, one of our own. And I just think it's unacceptable. So I wholeheartedly agree with anyone who's upset with any government official or administration that leaves our American citizens either in the hands of an authoritarian, government or left to die with no real investigation and no real justice. That is not leadership. So I totally hear what you're saying.
Yeah. I'm not familiar with the case to which you referred, but there's no question, despite our closeness with Israel, when the IDF behaves terribly, they should be held to account, and they shouldn't be in some special category where they're incapable of being criticized. That's not what friendship is. We're talking about an American citizen. That comes first. What they're saying about Fogel is that we did do a prisoner swap for him. We gave up some, I can't remember if it was an arms dealer. It wasn't a great guy. He was in prison over here from Russia. But what is it, Deb? Sorry? Cybercrime? Oh, cybercrime. All right. So that's not great, but maybe not as bad as arms dealer. And these things they always require that kind of a thing. It's like, look, 1 and 1, that's pretty good if you compare to what's happening with Palestine and Israel right now, where they have to release hundreds to get 2 Americans out. I just feel like none of this stuff was ever held against Joe Biden. You never heard about it in the media. This isn't the kind of thing that the media gives 2 shits about, and that they're not going to give Trump any credit for. And it's just relatively minor example of his deal making, which they kind of mock a lot in the press, but it can be very effective. We continue to face uncertainty when it comes to the economy, with a perfect storm brewing.
Yeah, they talked about people like Nike pushing victimhood, and victimhood being tied to identity and gender. It's just it's a lot. It was really interesting. The full video was almost 2 hours long, so I wasn't going to show the whole thing. Before I get into my other video, I did want to share, because I'd like to share receipts. So this is Canadian cloud seeding market. Canada cloud seeding market analysis, industry size, share research reports, insights, COVID-19 impact, statistics, trends, growth, and forecast for 2025, 2034. Leading companies in Canada cloud seeding market, Weather Modification Inc., Alberta Hail Suppression Project, Weather Modification International, North American Weather Consultants, Aquila Air Traffic Management Services, Snowy Hydro Limited, WeatherTech Services Inc., Dynamic Isolation Systems, Ice Crystal Engineering, Western Weather Consultants. And so here we have clients associated with us. We've got L'Oreal Paris, Oracle, Microsoft, Hilti, Amazon, Siemens, Boston Consulting Group, Accenture, Mondelez International, Samsung, Deloitte, Intel, KPMG, Microsoft. Very interesting. What are they doing to our skies? What are they doing? Anyways, I want to get back onto Whitney Webb because I didn't finish the video because I was a bit rushed. And so she, like, everything she shares is freaking gold, you know, and so.
Themselves to be one of the key players in that space. They acquired, I think that has been sort of propelling this forward, at least one of the earlier groups, the Intrinsic Exchange Group, which is a product of the Rockefeller Foundation and the multilateral development banking system, has a graphic on their website called The Opportunity, and they show there the existing amount of assets in the world economy, and then show what if we unlock natural assets, how nature's economy, it's like 6 times the amount of existing assets in the economy today. And so as an asset manager, BlackRock being able to unlock and take control of as many natural assets as possible that aren't currently part of the financial system is obviously a way for them to perpetuate what they do and deepen and expand their control over not just people in the existing financial system, but really over the natural world as well, and essentially turn everything alive into a tradable Wall Street financial product. And the goal, as Fink has stated, is to have all of this on a universal ledger, on blockchain, presumably, and have it be, trackable and surveillable, which is interesting if you look at it through the context of risk management, which is something that Larry Fink is very open as having been one of the guiding lights of his whole career. And so by having it all surveillable and automated in a sense, he's able to have his risk management AI thing, Aladdin, sort of exercise control over it in unprecedented ways, I think. For their benefit. And then, of course, a lot of what's happening now as we're moving into this new financial governance system is the push to change.
Again, this is not even a brag or anything like that. This is just put some credibility towards my name and stuff like that. And even with Aladdin, I was talking about that like 5 years ago.
Change all of the infrastructure towards this, quote unquote, green model, I guess, or decarbonization, right? Which is, of course, interface with the global carbon market, but not necessarily so. Like it doesn't have to be. But the push is obviously to create a bunch of new infrastructure all over the world, and BlackRock is positioning themselves to be one of the key players in that space. They acquired, I think they're called GIP, one of the biggest infrastructure developers in the world. And I think one of the top guys at Davos just a few months ago was talking about how they're betting really big on infrastructure going forward. And it's going to be one of the biggest investment opportunities of the next several decades, actually. So I think they're quite ambitious. And, if people aren't aware of this, I'm sure they'll get away with it, but we'll see. One of the things, too, about the natural asset thing, at least as far as the natural asset corporation model is concerned, is that you literally just go into a forest or you go to a river or lake and you identify the natural asset, and then at no cost to you, just after identifying it, you issue shares in the natural asset, a lake, a forest, whatever, and then you sell those shares to the sovereign wealth funds, asset managers, whatever, and then you have an IPO and generate all this money. I mean, it's literally just pointing out something outside and being like, this is mine, I'm going to fractionalize it and sell it to people, and you're producing money in like, out of thin air, essentially. And you're able to do that. I mean, the natural world is vast and huge, and they're doing this, they're financializing it all as framing it as the only way to save the planet. But really it's the only way for them to save their insane debt racket.
Right. Right. And it's funny too, because, I think there's a parallel here that you've talked a lot about where it's like, pay no attention to the man behind the curtain playing with the blockchains and who's validating the blockchains. Howie Lutnick of Cantor, specifically said, hey, if you want something seized, Tether's great. You just call Tether. Ethereum's great. You just call Joe Lubin. You call the guy behind the decentralized theater to blacklist the person or do whatever. Reminds me kind of a little bit of how the AI play is probably going to go, right? It's like, oh, it's AI that's in charge. It's AI that's in control of all these things, but really it's the keepers of the AI.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, you have to pay attention to the people that are tweaking the AI, programming its objective functions that maintain it. They're able to manipulate it, and there is definitely a coordinated push to put AI in charge of as much of everything really as possible, and allows them to sort of follow what I call the Wizard of Oz model, be the man behind the curtain, but have AI be sort of this layer between you and the public that gives you sort of allows you to never be accountable for anything. You can just either blame everything on the AI or say like AI is superior to human intelligence and therefore, it's not our fault and we should trust what it says. Computer says yes, computer says no. And, I think it's very likely that AI following that same model is going to have a very big role in this coming digital financial system. Well, I think the selling point that we're going to be seeing soon are these same guys saying this is the free market solution to climate change. Right. Let's let the free market resolve the environmental issues that we're facing, and this is the way to do it. I think it's probably going to be cloaked under those metrics because obviously framing it in sort of a left-leaning way has been unsuccessful and generated a lot of pushback. To the point where you have big groups like BlackRock and Vanguard, abandoning some big groups that they were a part of. You have Larry Fink openly backing away from the term ESG after being sort of the ESG champion guy and going on record saying that a lot of this stuff that BlackRock's been involved in that's been framed as ESG isn't about politics or ideology. It's about the prospect of long-term returns and profit. So I think, him moving in that rhetorical direction is sort of a harbinger of what we're likely to see going forward because they want the big players in financial markets to sign on and they don't want to see it as like a state-led thing. They want to see a private sector-led thing to get them to onboard and also to sort of, I think, neuter a lot of the criticism from right-leaning people and the populist right in general.
The guys are guns.
Yeah, well, in the States, the majority of gun owners, right? They want to sort of placate them. And I think they're also going to offer it to people as, oh, if you buy into these systems, you'll, be prosperous. This is, a return to sovereignty and prosperity. And they're going to use some of these technologies, where people have heard the terms but aren't necessarily overly familiar with them, and sort of market it as being, a return to financial sovereignty and prosperity and stuff. But really, I think it's, again, it's going to be the same debt-based monetary system. Debt is a form of control. Yep. But they're going to try and market it, I think, under those metrics. So, Fink recently said that he views Bitcoin specifically as a technology for asset storage. And in this multipolar currency paradigm, it's likely there's going to be, in multipolar reserve assets, they want to move away from the appearance, at least, that the U.S. dominates the reserve assets of the world. Do you think Bitcoin has a place in that? And do you think it's possible for the U.S. government to sort of Wizard of Oz that, to sort of be able to manipulate countries, through that potentially?
100%. Yeah. I mean, we talked earlier about how, Bitcoin basically is digital M0. It's this digital base layer money, digital base money, and all of these other dollar denominated things and Ethereums and all these whatevers are debt based. And, Larry Fink specifically talks about, it's technology for storing assets. It's this universal ledger of the state that, we can shove any integers into, any bits, and use it to uphold the state of all sorts of other assets. The U.S., I think, has the most to gain from Bitcoin, actually. It's sort of this weird, it's been framed, so much so the opposite. But the U.S. has so much Bitcoin. The United States has 1 million plus Bitcoin. We're seeing companies like MicroStrategy, basically doing a speculative attack against the U.S. dollar while their headquarters is 15 minutes away from the CIA at Langley. They have 200,000 Bitcoin. The ETFs, with Grayscale and with the new BlackRock and Fidelity ETFs, there's like almost 600,000 Bitcoin now within the United States. There's a huge push within the United States, within the borders of the United States, to acquire as much Bitcoin as possible. I think the U.S. has way more to gain as we've crossed this 33 trillion, 34 trillion. We're at this runaway debt service. Where do we print money and retain our economic hedge fund? We can actually inflate the dollar into Bitcoin, this demand inelastic asset, and uphold the economic the play with capital requirements, where if you want to hold $100 million of Bitcoin, you need to hold 100 million.
Okay, well, I don't really care about Bitcoin too much. I do have some shares in it, but whatever. On to the next. This is exciting. South Carolina's AG launches investigation into Fauci's COVID lies.
GiveMeDoor.com for the link for the cheapest tickets. So the word on the street is that Fauci still, even though he got a pardon, he might get prosecuted on the state level because the pardon was not for the federal level. South Carolina AG Wilson is coming for Anthony Fauci. Even Joe Biden's pardon won't save him. What's going on? Alan Wilson leading a coalition of, so he's the South Carolina attorney general or state's attorney, and he's leading an investigation of a bunch of attorney generals, state attorney generals, investigation into Dr. Fauci.
Yay.
Let's watch.
Alan Wilson says he is leading a coalition of state attorneys general in an investigation into Dr. Anthony Fauci's role in the COVID-19 pandemic response. Wilson is alleging that Dr. Fauci mismanaged the pandemic, made misleading statements, and suppressed scientific debate.
Yep.
Dr. Fauci has repeatedly denied any allegations of wrongdoing, calling them absolutely false, and preposterous.
And remember, whenever the accused claims that the charges against him are preposterous, that translates into, oh shit, they found out. Because it looks like Tony Two Masks might wind up in the big yard after all. State laws are awaiting him, just like Elliot Ness busting Capone for tax evasion.
I'll believe it when I see it.
I'll believe it when I see it.
think he looks pretty confident because let's face it, we already know all his crimes. So are you going to look into it, are you?
Well, I like how he says it's and the news still won't tell you what his crimes were. But if Fauci thinks this is ridiculous, I mean, an investigation into COVID and what you did, what are you going to do? Watch old Jimmy Dore clips? Read RFK's book with all his crimes delineated in it? The investigation's already been done, bro.
Yeah.
Just arrest him. Use the fancy terrorist laws.
Yeah. Hold him with no trial or charges.
If you want proof, then I've shared so many medical, scientific, and government references on my earlier Rumble videos in the description box. And so just take a look at that. Take a look at some of my videos. That's, that should be enough.
I thought we had these terror laws for a reason.
All unclassified, declassified. Nothing is classified that I've ever shared.
Can't capture a bioterrorist and do this? We killed an American citizen in another country, didn't we?
Yep.
With drones. We don't have drones for terrorists like this?
Oh.
Here's one congressman who's a doctor giving it to him.
Believed an institutional should make it hard for people to live their lives.
So remember when Dr. Fauci wanted to make it hard for you to live your life so you'd be forced to get the vaccine? Remember this?
So they'd feel pressured to get vaccinated. Could we run the audio clip?
There's an audio clip of someone recording Fauci saying this thing.
You think can be done about it? I have to say that I don't see a big solution other than some sort of mandatory vaccination. I know federal officials don't like to use that term. Once people feel empowered and protected legally, you are going to have schools, universities, and colleges are going to say, you want to come to this college, buddy? You're going to get vaccinated. Lady, you're going to get vaccinated. Yeah. Big corporations like Amazon and Facebook and all of those others are going to say, you want to work for us, you get vaccinated. And it's been proven that when you make it difficult for people in their lives, they lose their ideological bullshit
and they get vaccinated. Are all objections to COVID vaccinations ideological bullshit, Dr. Fauci?
No, they're not, and
Thank
that's
you.
not what I was referring to.
Well,
Yeah, that was actually
in reference to making it hard for people to get education, traveling, working, I'd say it very much was in context. That's exactly what you meant
And it
when you
was.
said making it hard for people to live
You made it very hard.
without getting a vaccination. You affected people's ability to work, travel, be educated, to actually flourish in American society, to self-determine, as we're all given God-given rights. Shame on you.
Oh my God.
Yeah, shame doesn't work on him.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, like, buddy, cut it short. He don't care. Look at his face.
The guy's got he's got more fans than scruples. Okay, and he's losing fans right now, like if he was a Kansas City Chief. By the way, is there a tip or a hotline that I can send the countless hours of footage of Fauci lying?
Yeah,
because I've got them.
it doesn't matter.
To save money on this investigation, it's been done for how many?
So much information at tip lines in Canada, and I've shared the receipts too. Like I've shared the sent emails and gives, like, again, it was medical, scientific, and government data and references that I was providing, and they didn't care. And I would even call up the tip lines, and I was even laughed at from, it was like, I believe, CTV tip line, guy on the phone, it didn't care.
20 years now?
Yeah.
20?
No kidding, right?
Like, that's why I don't buy this. I'm like, okay, this guy's been a Joseph Mengele rampaging across America for 20 years. Nothing happened. So unless you got some undercover, like, white hat branch of CIA, it's going to do something, nothing's going to happen.
And now that Fauci is not the head of the NIAID, guess what he's saying now? Watch this.
Fauci says COVID-19 and influenza vaccines don't work well and calls for improved shots.
A startling bit of news.
You sent that over to me, and I was looking, Babylon Bee, something like this. No, it's actually true. It's a new paper that he wrote with a couple of colleagues from the CDC in a magazine. I'm sure you have a subscription, Cell Host and Microbe magazine. But all joking aside, this is what he actually said. If we can do the next one. Vaccines against both COVID-19 and influenza have, quote, deficiencies, including that they elicit incomplete and short-lived protection against evolving virus variants that escape population immunity. Fauci, until recently, President Biden's chief medical advisor and top National Institute of Health official, wrote in a recent paper. But if you'll put this next one up, Dr. Paul, unfortunately, instead of saying that, that we really messed this one up, no, the paper is called Rethinking Next Generation Vaccines for Coronaviruses, Influenza Viruses, and Other Respiratory Viruses. We messed up, but we're going to keep doing it.
That's true. They want to manufacture the enemy, then they can treat it, and there's evidence that that's exactly what they were doing. But when I read this, superficially, it could be interpreted, well, they don't work well, and he calls for improved shots. Well, maybe he has in his mind that we can convince the people that, well, yes, we messed up, but those vaccines, they weren't the right thing. But we have the right thing now. Get back in line. Yeah. I don't think that's going to work. I mean, the people sometimes are so complacent and they just follow and think the government can tell them, the best thing to do. But they're not going to line up.
No, only weak punk-ass Democrats will continue to do that. Only the last of the loyal blue, no matter who, morons will still do that, but no normal people.
So
I don't believe it.
So before COVID, Fauci believed in natural immunity and said if you got the flu, you didn't need a flu shot. Remember?
But she's had the flu for 14 days. Should she get a flu shot?
Well, no. If she got the flu for 14 days, she's as protected as anybody can be because the best vaccination is to get infected yourself.
And
so
if
she really has the flu, she definitely doesn't need a flu vaccine.
There are so many scientific studies out there regarding natural immunity being superior, and these are links that I shared as well, and frustrating.
If she really has the flu,
she should not get it again.
No, she doesn't need it because it's the most potent vaccination is getting infected yourself.
And then that all switched during COVID. That all switched. And now this is what he says.
And what about for folks who have had a cold, possibly a bad cold early in the season, and they think they've gotten the flu and now they have an immunity because they've had the flu, and so they don't need the flu vaccine?
Well, there's two components to the answer. One, they may not have gotten influenza. They may have gotten any of a number of the circulating upper respiratory viruses. Coronavirus, adenovirus, parainfluenza. They think it's flu and it's not. You will likely never know. Therefore, you should get the flu vaccine.
So now he has a totally different answer. He has a totally different answer now. Isn't that wild? It's a totally different answer. So I could do this all day. I don't have time, but I could do this all day. And the people who repeated every stupid thing he said, every lie he said during COVID, they'll never feel stupid. They just memory hole it and they move on. They put on another mask and they move on.
And those people are never going to say, look at Fauci and his grift.
Never. They're never going to say that.
No, they'll say it to you, though.
But they'll say it about me. Jimmy
doesn't believe what he's saying. Jimmy actually secretly thinks Fauci's great.
That's what a grift would be.
All right, it'd be nice to see him get prosecuted. This video is going to be on Canadian government. I'm snowed in today, so the plow has not been out. Like I live, like it's a trail. It's not like a paved road off of my street, and so yeah, it's still snowing, and we had a lot of snow here overnight. We're supposed to get upwards of 40 centimeters, and so it might be a record, or might be close to a record in Canada in the last few decades. So very interesting. So it might be a longer video. Nope, wrong one. This is not what I wanted to show you. This one. Again, because it's very important. Like on March 9th, we're going to find out who the next Liberal Party leader is going to be. And either way, it's still going to make Canadians worse off than with Pierre Poilievre. And because, again, a lot of the things that he's calling out are necessary, including people's affiliations with WEF that are working within government, specifically cabinet and experts and private companies that they're using to protect them from being investigated properly. But anyway.
Is going to do is to use all of the power.
And to his event in Saskatchewan because he didn't bow to Mark Carney, because he wasn't an obedient follower. We got Justin Trudeau running his mouth in Brussels, saying all sorts of stuff, complaining about Trump and saying Ukraine will be the one that decides when the Russia-Ukraine conflict ends. Meanwhile, we've actually got Donald Trump ending that conflict. It seems very likely. But all of the premiers, all of them, went to Washington at the same time to talk to Trump. The new street fennel czar has been appointed. We've got more polling data. Let's jump into this. So first up here, this one modeled out by Sharia Teeth, the latest Ledger poll, still showing Conservatives 186 versus 120 for the Liberals. This is still a majority. We're seeing the Carney bump here. This will die off soon enough, especially people seeing exactly like with this video, who Mark Carney is, an authoritarian man who rules with an iron fist. And here's that poll here, the Ledger poll. Conservatives sitting at 40, Liberals 31. I should note regarding polling, somebody messaged me. I'm not going to say which polling company it was. It wasn't Ecos. It was one of the trusted ones. And apparently for certain events and stuff, polling companies will take money to get results that people want. So I'd say take all of these with a grain of salt. We've got this here. It says the Toronto Star says it was a grave mistake to cut immigration levels to Canada because Canada needs more Canadians if we're going to successfully fight Trump. What a load of crap. We don't have enough houses. This is a disgraceful statement by the Toronto Star. And people posting the receipts here from the World event, the I'm not going to read that word, the unword, patients do not deserve ICU beds. That is absolutely insane and preposterous. What's also insane is this guy here, Justin Trudeau. Listen to this nonsense, running his mouth in Brussels.
There's not a snowball's chance in hell that Canada will ever be the 51st state. At the same time, from having worked with President Trump for close over 8 years now, I can tell.
Hear that little vibration there, inflection in his throat as he said that? He is scared of Trump. He's terrified. Don't worry, Justin, you're less than a month now before you're out the door.
Tell you that we have to take seriously what he says and make sure we're responding appropriately. And this is going to be tough, but we're going to double down on Canadian pride and standing up for each other.
This idiot got us in this position. We wouldn't have been in this position if it wasn't for Justin Trudeau and all his dirty crime syndicate connections, Chinese triads, Iranian regime, Mexican cartels. What a disgrace of a man. Next up, we got Mark Carney here, saying Canadians want change and they're showing up for it. Here's the rally he had. You can see all the old ladies who watch CBC showing up for Mark Carney. Look at this. Sheila Gunreid of Rebel News posting this. At this event in Kelowna, Mark Carney promises to abuse the emergency powers of the federal government to build green energy projects and take on the Americans.
And something that my government is going to do is to use all of the powers of the federal government, including the emergency powers of the federal government, to accelerate the major projects that we need in order to build this economy and take on the Americans.
What's with that weird, creepy little smile he did right there? See that little creepy Count Chocula there? I don't think so. I don't like this guy. I don't like this guy at all. Anyone who openly says they're going to use emergency powers, like, what the heck is this? Check out this one. The energy for Mark Carney is just electric. Once again, more grumpy old CBC watchers here. In our headline story here, this is the event in Saskatchewan where a guy registered. He wanted to see what Mark Carney was talking about because they're not filming these things. They're pretty secretive. He wanted to see what's going on here. So he decided to show up as a conservative. He registered for the Liberal Party. And Mark Carney's team is going through every single person, all their social media, and figure out who's who. They go through and, ruling with an iron fist, are throwing people out of the events. Carney's got a lawyer with him at these events that throws people out. They bring in the cops, they toss the guy out. That's what we have right here. This guy here is Mark Carney's lawyer.
Yeah, literal liberal cabinet members, even, or members of parliament, and people that have worked with the Liberal Party for years, voted Liberal for years. They infiltrated the Conservative Party and even admitted it on live television in legacy bullshit media. And said that they did that to take over the Conservative Party essentially. And so they even had oh my God, who was it? Josh, don't quote me on that. I forget. But anyways, like someone that it has been more liberal of late that also was a possible candidate for leader of the Conservative Party. Like, I'm not even making this stuff up. And then again, people that were joining the Conservative Party specifically in order to sabotage from within. And again, multiple people within government have admitted this. And so the hypocrisy and the irony of this, where they don't allow people that may just want to see what they're saying and sharing, maybe to give them a different perspective and view, and to allow us to have the same capability. Because again, a lot of people within the Liberal Party, like they're not as open to discord as people. Well, actually, people don't believe they are open to discord, because look at the Freedom Convoy. Like, they didn't listen for weeks, didn't care. In fact, they just declared war on innocent civilians and joked about employing tanks and things like that, and arrested people. Anyway.
Saskman was removed from Carney's event in Regina moments after he entered. A lawyer approached and questioned him about a Facebook post where he criticized Carney. The lawyer then revoked his Liberal Party membership and had the police remove him for trespassing.
I'm a lawyer, so I'm not going to...
I'm a lawyer, so I'm a lawyer. Look at me. Sorry.
You should give this traitor a good...
We'll just take a look at his post here. It says, so a few weeks ago, I did something horrible. I signed up as a member of the Liberal Party of Canada. Why? Because I can't sit here and complain and not participate in this charade called democracy here in Canada. Because of this, I get emails now with updates. And this one I found rather interesting. Mark Carney, an unelected pawn that is being placed as a Liberal...
He wants updates. What is wrong with that?
Leader of Canada is coming to Regina on February 11th. We should give this traitor a good old warm welcome to Saskatchewan.
Good old warm welcome. Referring to a member in good standing as a traitor, despite your failure to dispel a lot of your work, is not okay. We're challenging your embassy, sir, and I'm asking you to leave.
We're joining this party by build our very accomplishment for many years.
What an absolute joke here. Carney getting his goons. He's got a lawyer with him and police to throw people out. And look how sad and empty this banquet is. Just a sad, lifeless event. Combining this with that other clip of him saying he will use the emergency powers to get whatever he wants done. People need to know who this guy is. He cannot be in power. He can't even be in power for 3 weeks. Carney, in my opinion, is dangerous to Canada. And jumping over to this story, it seems very likely that the Ukraine-Russia conflict will be coming to a close because of Donald Trump.
The president spoke to President Putin of Russia. They spoke at length, and the president released a statement following that conversation in great detail. I can also confirm that the president just recently got off the phone with President Zelensky of Ukraine. His truth is as follows. I just spoke to President Zelensky of Ukraine. The conversation went very well. He, like President Putin, wants to make peace. We discussed a variety of topics having to do with the war, but mostly the meeting that is being set up on Friday in Munich, where Vice President J.D. Vance and Secretary of State Marco Rubio will lead the delegation. I am hopeful that the results of that meeting will be positive. It is time to stop this ridiculous war where there has been massive and totally unnecessary death and destruction. God bless the people of Russia and Ukraine. I myself just spoke to the president about these calls, and he told me to tell all of you they were very good calls. They were very positive, and the administration is wholeheartedly committed to a peace deal to end once and for all the Russia-Ukraine war.
Wow. Now, you might wonder why.
Proxy war, staging grounds, trying to involve so many different countries within Europe to get involve them into a world war. And again, without the funding to bureaucrats and lobbyists and corrupted people within the Ukrainian government, this war would have never happened. Hundreds of thousands of Ukrainians wouldn't have died. What I would like to say, unfortunately, valiantly, but needlessly also at the same time. And it's just devastating to their country. And they've been through a lot. If you look at World War I and World War II and Holodomor, et cetera, et cetera. And even in 2014 with a staged and planned coup that involved the CIA, who are still operating in that area and who I believe to be enabling this to carry on. And again, it's for the profit of Raytheon, Lockheed Martin, General Dynamics, Boeing, the people that are part of the oil tycoon industries. Like it's really profoundly upsetting that it's going to take generations for this to be unfucked. And there are people that in these regions that are being disputed between Russia and Ukraine, where there have been Russians living in these areas for generations. And there are people that are again Russian and Ukrainian in these areas, but Ukrainians that speak Russian, they support Russia, and again, like, what do you do with that? And so like I was proposing things like having, and again, people were trying to get like go to Russia from these areas, change their passports and stuff like that, and Zelensky was refusing for this to be able to happen. And again, preventing there to be elections. And when there were elections, again, like this, it was fraudulent. He had armed guards, like he was like political prisoners. He had religious prisoners. He had people that would not be voting in support of him. Again, that were prisoners, like targeting so many different groups that would be that would be possibly voting against him, or to because again, even in the referendum, they'd be part of Russia. He absolutely did not want that to happen. And so he was doing everything in his power to not allow there to be any form of democracy within his country. And so much money being sent to, again, like Russian, like higher level government and private industry people that are gallivanting all over the world, high-end resorts and stuff like that, and chalets. And it's on taxpayers' dimes that are aiding and abetting this and supporting and enabling, whatever you want to call it. And again, it went nowhere when it came to gaining or losing land. It's going to be as per, and this could have been avoided. And even a few months before it even happened, it was on my whiteboard, because again, there were rumblings because of tensions that were escalating because of NATO reinforcing assets across Europe, and Putin seeing that as an escalation of force, etc. I've talked about this before. However credible that is, he had been saying that for years. That is a fact, and so were people within his government that were saying there were rising concerns because of this, because of the tensions with Russia and the Five Eyes community, or whatever you want to call it, and again, all the propaganda and psyops that has been pushed for decades for people in the first world countries to be anti-communist and calling him a commie, and anyway, all of this stuff. And yeah, people just don't know the full extent to how awful this has been. And at the expense of lives. And again, I'm talking about hundreds of thousands of people that possibly died. That's the stats that I've been looking at. Trump says millions. I don't necessarily, like, he would know more than I would. Probably has access to a lot more information than me, obviously. Although he doesn't know the moon landings were faked. Anyway, and that we can't go to outer space beyond the dome, this contained environment. So it'd be interesting if Doge would actually investigate NASA and General Dynamics in these groups, because again, that's another rabbit hole. But there might be a conflict of interest there, which I don't know. I don't know what to do about that, or what he'll do about that, for that matter.
Why is it taking Donald Trump to do this? I've mentioned it before. The people who make money on these world conflicts are the people like Lockheed Martin, Boeing, all these big defense contractors making hand over fist, and anyone in the chain of command who's connected to all those guys, getting kickbacks, all that kind of stuff. Seems quite possible that the whole Biden chain of command didn't want that conflict to end because their buddies were getting rich on the back end, and there's kickbacks coming.
So even Marco Mendicino's wife had shares and stocks in Northrop Grumman, which profits from war. It's a military industrial complex in itself, just like the others I was mentioning. And so also when he's talking about kickbacks, he's talking about people that have shares and stocks in these companies, or where their friends and family have shares and stocks in these companies. And yet, oh my goodness, look at Ilhan Omar as well, with that rabbit hole with her husband, and funding from the government, possibly going indirectly to them through his business associations, and like lying about her, exaggerating and politicizing her student debt, saying that she still has student debt anywhere between $15,000 and $50,000, and yet she makes almost $200,000 a year. And again, that doesn't include benefits, incentives, and so many other kickbacks that she gets, and also doesn't include her husband's net worth. And so ridiculous that she wouldn't be able to pay her student debt off by now. And if that's the case, that she has not been able to, then she shouldn't be in government, because she's terrible at managing money, right? Like, how do you have student debt when you make that much money and have for a very long time, not including the additional surplus that you get in benefits, and then also counting your husband's salary? And by the way, she did possibly marry her brother. Again, this is fraud. Fraudulent, in order for allow him to immigrate to the U.S. And just in itself, it's freaking weird, like, to marry your brother, possibly
in that way, because suddenly Trump gets in and look.
Anyway.
This conflict is nearly over. With that, we've got Captain Schmuck here running his mouth saying Ukraine gets to decide what peace looks like. This is the same thing that Melanie Joly just said the other day.
One of the things Canada has been very clear about is that it is only Ukrainians that get to decide what is acceptable to them as an outcome of any peace negotiations. Obviously, people will have different perspectives around strategies, around positionings. Ukrainians get to decide what the outcome of that peace process must be.
Yesterday, I showed you guys Melanie Joly saying that Ukrainians should be joining NATO and Canada wants them to join NATO. Meanwhile, we've got America saying, Ukraine's not joining NATO.
The United States does not believe that NATO membership for Ukraine is a realistic outcome of a negotiated settlement. Instead, any security guarantee must be backed by capable European and non-European troops. If these troops are deployed as peacekeepers to Ukraine at any point, they should be deployed as part of a non-NATO mission, and they should not be covered under Article 5.
So basically, America's coming out here saying they're not going to be deploying troops to Ukraine. Now, with that, Donald Trump had a conversation with Vladimir Putin, and he's bringing back Mark Fogel. This was a school teacher who went over to Russia and had a small amount.
It was my
Port Vila, Vanuatu. That's right. Now, if you're not sort of far off ripoff, we've got $48,145 spent on empowering women's groups through hands-on.
Empowering women's groups through hands-on small business and economic training.
On small business and economic training.
Global Affairs Canada, location Port Vila, Venezuela. No, sorry, Vanuatu. Grants and contributions.
This one says it's at Port Vila, Vanuatu. That's right. Now, if you're not familiar, Vanuatu is a little island right here off the coast of Australia, north of New Zealand here. This is what we're talking about. Port Vila of this little island in the middle of Timbuk nowhere, $48,145. This was to empowering women's groups through hands-on small economic business. Why are we empowering women in this little middle of the nowhere country? There's no sense. The population of this island is almost nothing. Like, this is basically the only settlement. There we go. Our money goes.
Fun fact about assisting and enabling women in industry and otherwise. I do donate and have in the past to multiple different women's groups and charities and organizations within Canada, including women that immigrate here to assist them with the transition and to let them fully understand how things are much different in Canada than in the countries that they are coming from, and give them like another opportunity to thrive, I would say, and not be like forced to carry on with the system of oppression in some of the countries that some of these women are coming from. And some of these women, again, have experienced, and children have experienced, such awful trauma that again, I hope I don't come across as anti-immigrant when I talk about illegal immigrants and foreign temporary workers and people here on student visas that are not here for the right reasons, and also exploiting our economic system in our country, and are not here for the right reasons, and are absolutely not in areas where they're at any threat or risk or of harm to themselves. And it's just they're coming from overdeveloped countries. They don't want to expand outwards into more rural areas where life might be a little bit more difficult. But again, you're trading conveniences for freedoms and liberties when you do things like what I did, move in a log cabin on 5 acres outside of a city, where I can at least provide for myself if it came down to it. But anyways, I want to get into this because this is breaking news. So I'm going to stop sharing this for a minute, but I will keep on with this. But this was just sent to me from Ethos and Eris. This is the Canadian Armed Forces that are not only pushing DEI still, and again, full speed ahead. Jenny Carignan, the Chief of Defense Staff, the highest ranking military member in the Canadian Armed Forces, works directly with the Prime Minister's office, had said in a virtual meeting. This was a couple of weeks ago, and with commanding officers. Again, these are the highest ranking officers within organizations within the Canadian Armed Forces, various different trades, and but the people at the top, right? And then they're senior NCOs as well. So like the top of the top for the non-commissioned members that work hand in hand with the senior officer leadership. And they had asked the question about DEI, and she had literally said that it was here to stay, that it was not going anywhere. And unfortunately, there was no pushback after that, because I guess people didn't want to have an argument or a debate during a meeting when there was probably other more important things to discuss. But again, I will argue that it is important that we do address this, because then our numbers will come up just like it's happening in the US. And people like Pierre are sharing really good initiatives that do involve focusing on the military and reconstituting and further developing, and again, having our presence where they need to be on the northern and southern borders and east and west coasts, etc. Anyway, on this tangent already, but this is the latest Can4Gen. This is a DEI award badge. A DEI award badge for the Canadian Armed Forces. And I'm going to share this on my social media afterwards, because I actually have the Can4Gen and then the screen captures that were provided to me that just show the breakdown of this specific part of this Can4Gen. But professional conduct and culture, PCC citation, an actual citation. The professional conduct and culture, PCC citation, was approved by the CDS, Chief of Defense Staff, on the 12th of July, 2024. So less than a year ago. And again, this is when Jenny Carignan was a CDS. And again, like I have said, for years, she is the one that for over a decade that I know of, at least, that has been pushing the woke and DEI climate change woke bullshit, right? Not it, right? There's so many women that are competent, incredible leaders that I would put as CDS way before her. And unfortunately, she is definitely a DEI hire. And anyway, so the PCC citation is awarded by the Chief Professional Conduct and Culture, CPCC. And by the way, that would be removed, that office, fired, to recognize members of the defense team who have demonstrated outstanding contributions to ethics and cultural development within the profession of arms, and worn in similar fashion to a command commendation, except the PCC citation pin is worn on the right pocket flap. The PCC citation consists of a black bar adorned with 3 small insignia, each made up of a half maple leaf and half face silhouette. The background is of high contrast and supports the other elements of the citation. The red maple leaves serve as a representation of the Canadians we serve each day with integrity and courage. The half face silhouette represents the diverse lived experience of each of us. The PCC citation recognizes pan-departmental deeds and contributions that exceed normal expectations and align with the improvement and evolution of CAF DND culture criteria. For nomination will be based on merit, but how far you push this, that's the merit they're talking about. How far you push DEI and woke initiatives, boom. Cites commanders comment. Oh my God, just can't even believe it. But anyway. Yeah. And so recognition shall be focused primarily on, but not limited to, the work of junior members of the defense team, which includes military, regular, and reserve, as well as members of the public service. Additionally, nominations are not limited to those in service of Canada. Members of foreign militaries are also eligible, so long as their contributions is to the betterment of the CAF DND. Actions contribute uniquely to at least one of the 4 culture change outcomes. Number 1 on the list. Number 1 on the list. You can see that. Diversity, equity, inclusion. Number 2 is trust and leadership. 3 is professional conduct. And 4 is defense team experience. Like, number 1 on the list. And so, yeah, there's my receipts, ladies and gentlemen. I just can't believe this is Canada. Oh, I was just asked a question. Wait 1 second here. Question for you, Don. Do you have a favorite for the position of the new fentanyl czar? It wouldn't be like, for me, it would be based off of my lived experiences and people that I've worked with in the past. And so I'm going to call him out again, but I think he'd be too busy for the job. But he's a former Patricia, a fucking legend hero, Mark Pickford. I don't mean to call him out because, again, he's a bit introverted. But again, this guy was a warrior legend. Patricia, he was in the infantry, obviously, and he was a senior NCO when he retired. And now he's working in emergency disaster management in Alberta, by the way, God's country, of course, West Coast. And so he's been working with border security now for literally years, and that's after serving this country, during war periods. And again, like a literal hero like this. Like, I just can't say enough about him, and so I would choose him. And again, I have to think about it. I would have others in mind too. I know a former Patricia. I don't want to friggin' call him out, but he was a former Patricia officer, and I've deployed with him overseas in Afghanistan. And he's one of the directors at CBSA in Ottawa. So he's very high ranking in the Canadian Border Services Agency, but he's new to the job. And I don't know how, I haven't talked to him in a few years. So I don't know how up to speed he is on the reality of like major events, right? Like 9/11, Freedom Convoy, January 6th, Russia, Ukraine, Israel, Palestine. Like, I don't know how much information he actually has, because people within his network at the top, I know that they are people that are, again, not tracking the reality of the world like you would expect, which is unfortunate. But so I'm not going to name him because I don't so, but he would be maybe number 3 on my list, not number 2. And and then I know someone that has like over 34 years as a Patricia, as an officer, retired as a colonel, and it has done a lot of work. He's incorporated now, but he's in the last couple of years, as soon as he got out after 34 friggin' years, he assisted with what's going on in Russia, Ukraine, again, in a noble cause, like medical evac assistance. For people that were in areas that were getting demolished, right, and getting people out of areas that were possible impact zones, kill zones as well, because again, there were women and children and innocent civilians that were also profoundly impacted by, and still are, what's going on. Even with just hearing the explosions, like children having shell shock like symptoms, breaks my friggin' heart to even think about that, and just life not really that great for people. And so he's done that stuff. He's really big on the like trying to mitigate trauma to children in multiple different countries that are in conflict zones. He's been Africa multiple times as well. Not so much experience on the Canadian specific border, but very smart. And so, like, again, like maybe number 2. Good question. Sorry. But yeah, Mark Pickford would probably be top of my list right now, just based on his experiences and skill sets, and the fact that I don't think he can be bought. I don't think he'd be. I don't think he'd care if they try to blackmail or bribe him either. I don't think he would care about any of that stuff. But again, I don't know. I'm gonna carry on with this.
Going here to empower people. Why? Smells like money laundering to me. It looks nice here, but why? We got this one posted by Brian Lilly.
Yeah, and I'm also saying Mark Pickford too, and I hate calling him out like that, but because like I also know that he also has contacts with like chiefs of police, not just in Alberta, but like all across Canada. So like not only his experience, but his contacts, his connections, people that he's worked with, and that he knows people that are former Patricias or former military, like in other careers. But he can leverage that, and so he would have a lot more resolve, I guess, than a lot of people I would know. I would absolutely not put like last on my list would be Bill Blair. Last on my list. Anyway,
it says every American politician you speak to in Washington, even Canada's friends, say dairy is a problem. They don't want to get rid of supply management, but they want access. And so they're asked about this today, if they would open up the dairy industry for the Americans to have something to negotiate with.
On dairy, even friends of Canada down here raise the issue of dairy every time. Are any of the premiers, yourself included, willing to start talking about dairy and not getting rid of supply management? Because none of them say that, but they do say we're too restrictive. So if we've got to ask for something, are we willing to give anything on their biggest irritant?
Place to have those conversations is at the table in a review of the USMCA and a reconsideration of that agreement, because that's really where the last conversation ended and where we need to pick it back up to see what that negotiation is going to look like and what concessions are going to be made on both sides.
President Trump has said
else?
that the federal response,
No, I just want to say a few words on dairy. In Quebec, we are against changing the management of the offer. The reason why we have that is
he's still trying to deny a pipeline, despite the fact that like they get handouts from Alberta, which is hilarious. Like some of the biggest equalization payments are to Quebec. Look that up. And again, I'm getting a lot of their oil and gas from Alberta and places like Saudi Arabia. And so like if you were able to have a pipeline within your own province to assist with you creating your own wealth and economic surplus, then you would be better off. But again, these people paid for, blackmailed, bribed.
to protect our
Wrong side of history.
Right? So we don't give any subsidy to milk producers. So the only thing we do is we manage the offer, and it's a way to protect small farms in all the regions.
Excuse me.
So for us, it's not negotiable.
Not negotiable. How will we take away those equalization payments? This is not a fair situation here, guys. If Quebec doesn't want to work with Canada, then there should be equalization payments going to them, which we can see here. So here's major transfer. Here's Quebec's transfer payments. You can see equalization right here. These are in billions of dollars. So $10 billion.
Actually, I also have another person on my list. It would be Chris Mandigma. And he has law enforcement experience, including, I believe, at the RCMP level. He was working at the Wildlife Preservation Office within Ottawa and Gatineau area, and then also he teaches. He's a use of force instructor, like the best in the world, in my humble opinion. And he does a lot of good practical scenarios as well, and he does so much training. He does so much like higher level CQB training and use of force, like I was saying, but with the military, with law enforcement agencies all over Canada. And so again, he's also in that network where like he also has a lot of experience in multiple different government agencies where he's been on the ground, boots on the ground. And he also has a lot of contacts within multiple different departments and agencies. And I do believe that is necessary to have that collaboration already in existence, and that experience and those skill sets. So no, it would not be Melanie Joly, who the only experience she has with defense, anything related, is like she cut her hair or put her hair in some kind of like a bob and wore what looked like to be like trying to like represent or simulate a combat shirt And just like ridiculous, playing war, like just a fucking stage for these people to act on.
11, 13, 14 billion, 13 billion. Quebec gets a lot of money. So to claim that, oh, we don't want to give anything. I mean, we've got Swab Blanchett.
J. Edgar Hoover types. Yeah. All right. That would be nice. Also possibly involved in the JFK assassination plot.
Saying the same thing here.
Energy, new more markets.
They're finally. I know I'm cutting this guy off so much. I'm sorry. I'll stop doing that. But like I'm like almost like I'm just all over the place. Like, look, scroll. Oh fuck! I lost my fucking train of thought. Yes, no, I didn't. Okay, so the files are coming out. They're becoming more declassified, and now they're finally admitting in the last 24 hours that there was likely another shooter. Shocking.
For our various products, our energy has to serve Quebec first and foremost. And I will continue to say until the day we vote that there is no economic interest for Quebec in seeing a pipeline across Quebec that would harm the environment. And we
can do it in ways that would have like a significantly small impact on the environment. With the advancements that have been done with being able to like remote access like areas where there might possibly be issues or faults, where you're not having to like impact like large swaths of areas where if there's like some kind of like a leak, like it would be like contained to like a very small area in very short order, again because of being triggered by these alarms and these systems, and again like this is like more underground, and so for the overground stuff like people should absolutely be looking at the least amount of impact to the environment, and then looking at ways to recoup that damage after the BSA is done, and again like make sure that there's the least amount of impact to natural resources.
We would pay that.
And this is a freaking joke when we've shared repeatedly that there are people within government or working with government and supported by them that have even done things like start fires, poison Lake Miramichi.
Pay for that very, very dearly.
Yeah, you're okay with accepting money made from oil and gas from Alberta. The hypocrisy here is just like this is beyond stupid, guys.
We would have to repair the damage from that climate change, and we must not allow ourselves to be influenced by the West's desire to get their oil to the other coast.
You can't make up this level of stupidity. If you want to run the province like that, by all means.
It's more efficient. So how many, and again, this is going to impact my stepfather's industry, the truck driving industry, but how much would carbon emissions, again, and that's also a hoax, like how much would be mitigated if we did have these pipelines, like for the overland transportation of, and the shipping from Saudi Arabia, like the amount of pollution that could possibly be mitigated because of this, these people don't even factor that in. Like, it's just they're so short-sighted.
You can't accept Alberta oil money then, period. No more equalization payments for Quebec until they get their head screwed on straight. Next up, we got the new street fennel czar appointed here, this guy, Kevin Brosseau. This guy's a former RCMP. He's been out of the RCMP for nearly 10 years, about 9 years now. Quick look at his experience: Associate Deputy Minister of Fisheries and Oceans. Same thing with Safety and Security, Transport Canada, Royal Canadian Mounted Police, and Commanding Officer at Royal.
Okay, so he made it out fairly high ranking. So he was Commanding Officer, Royal Canadian Mounted Police for several years, it looks like. Commanding Officer, yeah, Deputy Commissioner, Royal Canadian, Assistant Deputy Minister, Safety and Security, Transport Canada. Again, he does come with a wealth of experience. So these are the types of people that, again, if they are running for, like, with an unbiased, analytical approach, would be incredible, optimal for the job, right? Like who better? October to December 2024. Deputy National Security and Intelligence Advisor to the Prime Minister and Deputy Secretary to the Cabinet Emergency Preparedness Privy Council Office. Okay. So I give him 2 thumbs down. His experience seems to be that he does not, and actually I'd like to see his reports first. So I'd like to see what kind of intelligence he's giving to the Prime Minister and the Privy Council Office, because again, what they are sharing publicly is false. A lot of it is false. It is inaccurate. It is bullshit. It is blatant lies. And so if he's been part of that or trying to call it out, I'd be very interested in that. I'd like the receipts.
Amount to Canadian police ending in 2016. So he has that ocean experience because a lot of this stuff is almost all this stuff is coming in from the ships into the port of Vancouver. The question is this guy paid off goon, or does he want to actually do what's right by Canada?
My question to you is that we know that Canada already represents less than 1% of the fentanyl going into the United States. Do you think we can realistically get that number to zero?
Getting the number to zero is in fact a goal and should be our goal. If it's 1 pound, 10 pounds, we all know the amount of deaths that possibly could represent. This is a national security and a public safety crisis. We should be focused on eliminating the scourge that is fentanyl in this country and in the United States.
And have you spoken with Border Czar Mr. Holman about your appointment? Are you planning to speak with him in the coming days?
I hope to speak with him soon. In fact, I spoke with the ambassador of the United States last night, and she and I talked about getting to DC very, very soon to be able to have those conversations. I've already, of course, as you know, spent some time here at the border. I'm being briefed by senior Canadian law enforcement officials later on today and tomorrow to understand the current situation on the ground, and I look forward to continuing those conversations with my American counterparts very soon.
He's been out of it for so long. He doesn't know what's going on. He's got to get briefed. Aside from that, I got nothing else to say about this guy. I don't know anything about this.
It does seem like the positions that he has held since would keep him absolutely more in the community, and not only just within his community within the RCMP, but also more involved deeply with other government organizations, private sector as well, etc. And so, so I'm going to have his back on that. But again, I'm questioning the fact that he was an advisor and to the top. And again, what he's sharing, was it actually going against what was being shared publicly? Because that was incorrect information. And so I would be interested in sitting down with this guy, having a meeting, discussing things, asking him some questions about the Freedom Convoy, January 6th, like I was saying, what's going on with Russia. I would ask him just simple questions just to see kind of where he is with the reality of the world. But he's very well spoken. He does have even post RCMP career, a full blown career. And so again, he could leverage those contacts. And so that's not a slant against him at all. It seems like he would have actually more experience with the positions that he was doing afterwards, but based on what he had done prior to, if that makes any sense. So he was hired because of his experience, but then he got further experience because of that. I would ask him if he knows who Brian Fox is and the allegations against him, what his stance is on COVID.
This guy, but is he a paid off goon? Is it the fact that, as I showed in the previous video, the Trudeau Liberals have been obstructing what the RCMP can see, obstructing their investigations? Is it just a matter of he won't have access to the proper information to see what is going on in our government, how it's connected to the cartels? Iranian.
Will he have the collaboration with American government?
Regime, Chinese triads, all this dirty business.
As a former RCMP officer yourself, what kind of skill set does he need to bring to the table for this job?
Well, you certainly need to be very good at leadership and management, because you'll be having everybody, all different agencies will be working for you. There'll be the RCMP, it will be the CBA, it will be CSIS, it'll be the Coast Guard, because some of our borders is on the coast, and Immigration and Transport Canada. All these people will be working together under the umbrella of his direction. So good leadership skills, good collaboration skills, being able to that didn't work, let's try something else without getting too down on everybody. I think those are really important skills he's going to need in this role.
See how this pans out. I don't trust the whole situation here, considering what's on the line here and what's coming down the pipe. How the Trudeau Liberals have taken money from Chinese triads, crime kingpins in Asia, and we know that's where all this street fentanyl is coming from. Got Brad West, the mayor of Port Coquitlam, says Canada will not make a dent in the street fentanyl or the transnational criminal organizations that have made it their bread and butter without RICO laws. So Canada doesn't have these RICO laws that they have down in America, which punishes people up to 20 years for being involved in this organized crime. RICO laws, Racketeering, Influence, and Corrupt Organizations Act, a U.S. federal law enacted in 1970 to combat organized crime, allows prosecutors to charge individuals or groups involved in ongoing criminal enterprises such as mafias, gangs, corporate fraud rings, or corrupt political organizations. It's been resisted for decades, and we've become a safe haven for criminal kingpins as a result. Job number one for the fennel czar, get it done. And we got another clip here of Captain Schmuck, just a few seconds here. Listen to him being asked about if he talked to J.D. Vance, this is the vice president in America, while at the AI summit in France.
What was J.D. Vance's response when you brought up steel in Ohio?
The AI summit in France.
Did you two talk about anything else?
It was just a quick greeting exchange. I highlighted the $2.2 billion worth of steel and aluminum exports from Canada go directly into the Ohio economy, often to contribute to manufacturing that happens there. He nodded and noted it, but it wasn't a longer exchange than that. But it is.
What a loser. This guy has the opportunity to talk with the vice president face to face, and he does nothing but have quick greetings and drops one statistic, and that's it. So JD Vance is from Ohio, and I believe that's why he pointed that out, the aluminum going to Ohio. This is
I'd be trying to talk his ear off just because of his position within the American government and how deeply impacted Canada is by American politics. Like, it wouldn't be like I would want to talk to him about so many different things. Like, do you know about the moon landing? Do you know about this? Do you know about that? You know, what's really going on in Russia, Ukraine. Like, anyway.
Deliberate by Trudeau and the Liberals. It's so obvious. They want to tank Canada's economy to make it better for Carney to run. So Trump is the villain here. There's another villain. It's not the crushing cost of living in Canada anymore. It becomes Donald Trump. This will change, though, once it gets closer to an election. People are going to start thinking again, what about healthcare? What about housing prices, etc.? But right now, they're just trying to keep poking the bear. We're starting to get a glimpse of who Mark Carney really is. I can't believe he came out and said he would use the emergency powers to get basically whatever he wanted done to push the green agenda in Canada. This is a guy who was a vice chair of Brookfield Asset Management, who's buying pipelines in UAE, Brazil, in the United States, pumping out 159 million metric tons of CO2 per year just from the one company. One company equivalent to a third of Canada's entire CO2 emissions. Yet he wants to use emergency powers in Canada to force the green agenda down our throats. This is a dangerous man. He cannot be prime minister of our country.
I agree with that. Totally agree. Okay. All right. Snow day. What the hell's going on? That's funny. Breaking news, border czar Tom Homan issues message to Sanctuary City, Chicago at press gaggle. There was something else I wanted to talk about. I did want to talk about the what happened in Europe, but I may wait on that. Yeah, so anyways, on that note, I will leave it at that, and I hope that everyone has a wonderful rest of your day.